It's a real story. 1. Her last flight. Plain terrifying secret uncovered mid-air. You wouldn't believe what was hidden. Ilara clutched the worn photograph of her family, a bittersweet smile playing on her lips. Years spent chasing her dreams overseas had finally led to this, her flight home. The hum of the engines was a lullaby of anticipation. She envisioned the tearful embraces, the familiar scent of her mother's cooking, the comfortable chaos of her siblings. This was not just a flight, it was a bridge spanning years of separation, carrying her towards the warmth of belonging. The plane, a sleek silver bird against the blue sky, felt like a vessel of hope. She settled into her seat, the safety video a distant blur, her heart already soaring towards home. The journey had begun. Midway through the flight, the cabin lights flickered, a minor inconvenience in the grand scheme of her journey. Ilara glanced around, noticing a few other passengers exchange uneasy looks. Then, her in-flight entertainment screen, which had been displaying a mindless rom-com, abruptly went black. A moment later, it sputtered back to life, but instead of the movie, a block of text appeared. It was stark, white letters against a black background. Unassuming at first, but, as she read the first few words, a chill snaked down her spine. It was not a system message. It was a warning. The text on the screen was fragmented, unsettling. And quote, Flight 737, they buried the truth, not a malfunction. They're still here, end quote. Each word felt like a cold whisper in the quiet cabin. Ilara, heart hammered against her ribs. What did it mean? Who were, end quote, they, end quote? And what was not a malfunction? She frantically tapped the screen, trying to dismiss the message, but it remained. A persistent, digital ghost. A knot of dread tightened in her stomach. This was not just a glitch. It felt deliberate, a message meant for someone, or everyone, on this very plane. The message vanished as suddenly as it appeared, replaced by the standard flight information. Ilara tried to dismiss it as a bizarre technical error, a prank perhaps. But the unease lingered. She discreetly scrolled through news apps on her phone, searching for anything about Flight 737, nothing recent. Then a buried article caught her eye. A small, forgotten news report from years ago about a mysterious incident involving a plane of the same model, Flight 737, that vanished without a trace. The details were sparse, the official explanation vague. A terrifying thought began to form. Ilara's paranoia began to manifest. She started noticing things she had not before. A faint icy draft near her window, despite the cabin being warm. Shadows that seemed to deepen and shift in the corners of her vision. She overheard snippets of hushed conversations from other passengers, their faces etched with similar unease. Someone mentioned a strange smell like ozone and something else, something metallic and cold. The cheerful atmosphere had evaporated, replaced by a palpable tension that crackled in the air like static. The plane felt different now, heavier, colder. Ilara caught the eye of a flight attendant, a young woman with a forced smile. She hesitated for a moment, then decided to confide in her. Showing her a picture, she managed to snap of the cryptic message before it disappeared. The stewardess' smile faltered, her eyes widening in alarm. She quickly ushered Ilara to a more secluded part of the cabin. Her voice was low, urgent, and quote, you saw that? You have to be careful. There are things they do not want you to know about this plane. Things that happened on other flights, and quote. Her words were a chilling confirmation of Ilara's worst fears. As the flight continued, the strange occurrences intensified. A sudden drop in altitude that sent stomachs lurching, followed by an unnerving silence from the cockpit. Ilara saw it then, a fleeting glimpse of a figure in the aisle, translucent and shimmering, before it vanished. It was not a reflection. It was not a trick of the light. It was there, a silent, chilling presence moving amongst the living. The air grew colder, and the scent of ozone was stronger now, carrying with it a faint, metallic tang that made her teeth ache. The plane felt like a tomb hurtling through the sky. Panic began to ripple through the cabin. Passengers demanded answers. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, calm and reassuring, blaming turbulence and minor technical issues. But his words felt hollow, a desperate attempt to maintain control in a situation spiraling into chaos. Ilara knew he was lying. The stewardess' terrified face, the cryptic message, the unseen presence, they all pointed to something far more sinister than turbulence. The pilot's denial only amplified the fear, leaving them feeling isolated and vulnerable. The plane began to descend, but not in the smooth, controlled manner of a landing. It was a rapid, sickening drop that sent loose objects flying and passengers screaming. The cabin lights flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows. The hum of the engines became a frantic roar, then sputtered, threatening to cut out completely. The unseen presence was more active now, a cold energy that seemed to press in on them, whispering in the darkness. Ilara braced herself, her mind racing. What was happening? Was this the end? Quote, hidden danger, end quote, the message warned of? Amidst the chaos, the in-flight screens flickered back to life, but this time they displayed a rapid-fire montage of distorted images, blurry faces screaming, flashes of light, the interior of a plane in disarray. It was like a corrupted memory, a horrifying playback of a past event. Ilara recognized the plane model, the same as theirs. These were fragments of the vanished flight. 737. The voices in her head were louder now, not just whispers, but tormented cries, echoing the screams on the screen. The plane was not just flying, it was reliving a nightmare. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of malevolence. It was not just a ghostly presence, it felt angry, vengeful. Objects began to move on their own, trays sliding across tables, overhead, compartments rattling open, revealing nothing but empty space. Ilara saw a shadow detach itself from the wall, elongating and twisting into a grotesque shape before lunging towards a terrified passenger. The screams were no longer just from fear. They were screams of agony. The plane was no longer a vessel of hope. It was a hunting ground. The stewardess found Ilara, her face ashen. End quote. It's them, end quote. She whispered, her voice trembling. End quote. The passengers from the other flight. They are here. They are trapped. This plane, it's a cursed vessel. It's somehow absorbed their final moments, end quote. Her confession was a horrifying confirmation of Ilara's fears. The plane was not just haunted. It was a prison for the souls of a past tragedy, and they were reliving their final moments with them. The stewardess revealed that the airline knew that they had tried to cover it up, using this plane on different routes, hoping to contain the activity. The stewardess, whose name was Sarah, explained that the airline had acquired this particular plane from a salvage operation after the Flight 737 incident. They believed the end quote, anomalies end quote, were just residual energy, something that would dissipate over time. They were wrong. The activity had only grown stronger, more focused. Sarah had seen things on previous flights, things that had made her question her sanity. Now, seeing the malevolent presence openly attacking passengers, she knew the containment had failed. They were in a race against time, not just against a crash, but against being consumed by the plane and #39's horrifying past. Ilara and Sarah, united by their shared terror and the stewardess' grim knowledge, tried to piece together the puzzle. Why this plane? Why were the souls trapped here? Sarah mentioned a rumor among the older crew members that Flight 737 was carrying something precious, something that was lost in the crash, and that the souls were somehow tethered to it, unable to move on until it was found or acknowledged. This cargo, whatever it was, might be the key to understanding and potentially breaking the curse. Armed with this chilling possibility, Ilara and Sarah began a desperate search through the chaotic cabin. Amidst the screaming passengers and the terrifying spectral attacks, they looked for anything out of the ordinary, anything that did not belong. They searched under seats, in overhead compartments, even in the small galley areas. The presence seemed to resist their efforts, the air growing colder and the spectral figures more aggressive as they got closer to something. It was a dangerous game of hide and seek with the dead. Their search led them to a section of the plane near the rear, an area that felt particularly heavy. With the presence, they noticed a small, almost invisible panel in the wall, something that looked like it could be a hidden compartment. With trembling hands, they worked to pry it open, the spectral figures swirling around them, their icy breath on their necks. The panel finally gave way, revealing a small, metallic box, intricately designed and surprisingly cold to the touch. Was this the lost cargo? Inside the box, nestled on a bed of faded velvet, was a single, ornate locket. It was old silver and beautifully crafted. As Alara picked it up, a surge of energy, both sad and powerful, coursed through her. The spectral figures seemed to momentarily pause, their forms becoming clearer, their expressions shifting from rage to a haunting sadness. The locket felt significant. Could this be what was tethering the souls? Was it a personal item, a symbol of love or loss? Holding the locket, Alara felt a strange connection to the trapped souls. She saw fleeting images. In her mind, a young couple saying goodbye, a child clutching a toy, a family laughing. These were the passengers of Flight 737, their lives cut tragically short. The locket seemed to resonate with their memories, their unfinished journeys. A desperate idea formed in her mind. If the locket held their connection, maybe it could also hold the key to their release. Facing the terrifying, yet now slightly less aggressive, spectral figures, Alara held up the locket. Her voice trembled, but she spoke clearly, addressing the lost souls. End quote. This was yours, end quote, she said, her voice filled with empathy. End quote. You do not have to be here. You can go home. You can find peace, end quote. As she spoke, the spectral figures seemed to gather around the locket, their forms becoming less distorted, their eyes, though still empty, holding a flicker of recognition. It was a gamble, a desperate plea in the face of overwhelming horror. As Alara finished speaking, a blinding white light erupted from the locket. The spectral figures were enveloped in the light, their forms dissolving, their tormented cries fading into a peaceful silence. The malevolent energy in the cabin dissipated, replaced by a profound sense of calm. The plane, though still descending rapidly, felt different. The engines sputtered back to life, a hesitant roar filling the cabin. Alara and Sarah clung to each other, exhausted but alive. The plane was still falling, but the terrifying secret had been revealed, and perhaps, just perhaps, they had a chance. The screen still blinked in quote, home, end quote, but now it felt like a promise, not an ironic taunt.